This presentation is an analysis of Sarah Orne Jewett's most popular short story, A White Heron. A white heron is an excellent example of local color since it depicts the lifestyle, natural surroundings, dialect, and values of a particular region, in this case, rural coastal Maine. The setting is off the coast of Maine in 1886. The protagonist, Sylvia, is a very shy, socially awkward 9-year-old girl whose only friends are animals. She thrives in her new home in the country with her grandmother, where she has lived since she was 8. She was very unhappy and afraid of people, such as the red-faced boy who used to taunt her, in her old home in the city. Sylvia is very close and at home in nature. The hunter is an ornithologist who shoots and stuffs the birds he says he loves. He is from the city and represents the intrusion of civilization and the corruptive allure of the city. And finally, Sylvia's grandmother. Sylvia lives with her grandmother on her farm in rural Maine. She encourages Sylvia to help the hunter find the heron's nest and earn the $10 reward he is offering. There are several external conflicts in the story, including Sylvia versus the hunter, country life versus city life, nature versus civilization, and male versus female. There is also internal conflict. Sylvia's struggle with whether or not to betray the bird to please the hunter and earn some money, as well as his approval and companionship. There are several symbols in A White Heron. First, the wretched dry geranium that belongs to Sylvia's neighbor when she lived in town represents the negative effects of city life on nature. An image repeated when Sylvia is described as hanging her head as if the stem were broken. This description suggests that Sylvia is close to nature and is vulnerable to the corruption of the city just like a flower. The hunter represents the intrusion of civilization and corruptive allure of the city on rural life and nature. And thirdly, the white heron is a symbol of nature, and the white represents the purity of nature. The fourth one is the tallest tree in the forest, which represents knowledge or clarity of thought, as Sylvia realizes that the heron's life is worth more than the $10. She realizes this when she reaches the top of the pine tree and can see the world beyond her farm. Along with the tree, the passage from the oak tree to the pine tree symbolizes Sylvia's change from childhood to adulthood. The importance of nature. Sylvia loves animals and the natural surroundings of her home in the country. She is described as if she were part of nature when it says she is part of the gray shadows and moving leaves. Also, her bare feet and fingers are described to be like birds' claws, showing her natural connection to the bird and thus helping to explain her ultimate decision not to tell the hunter where the bird's nest is after she climbs the pine tree and finds out. She also struggles to understand how the hunter killed the very birds he seemed to like so much. The author shows her sympathy for Sylvia and her own love of nature when she ends the story with, "Whatever treasures were lost to her, woodlands and summertime, remember, bring your gifts and graces and tell your secrets to this lonely country child." A White Heron is a story of initiation into adulthood, or a Bildungsroman, which means a rite of passage novel. The innocent young girl is exposed to temptation from the allure of the outside world through the temptation of money and the possibility of pleasing a male who makes her woman's heart vaguely thrilled by a dream of love, as well as the temptation of finally having a friend other than the animals. She also experiences a physical challenge climbing the huge tree, which not only is physically demanding, but dangerous as well. When she undertakes the passage from the oak tree to the pine tree, it symbolizes her change from childhood to adulthood. When she reaches the top of the pine tree, she can see the vast and awesome world that lies beyond the narrow world of her grandmother's farm. Climbing the tree symbolizes her maturity, and it is only after this rite of passage, symbolic of adolescence, that she can make the adult decision to sacrifice pleasing the hunter and her grandmother and turning down the $10, which by the way was worth considerably more back then than it is worth today, in order to save the white heron's life.